school was buzzing with excitement and noise. Students were filling the large assembly hall, some chatting with their friends, others finding their seats and looking around at the stage. It was a typical day, but something in the air made it feel special. The sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting warm patterns on the wooden floor. Teachers were moving around, making sure everything was ready for the morning assembly. Everyone seemed to be in high spirits, laughing, whispering, and sharing small stories from the day before. At the center of the hall, the principal was pacing slowly near the stage. He was known for his playful attitude, always cracking jokes and trying to lighten the mood. Today, he had something in mind that he thought would be funny, a little prank to entertain the students. He scanned the crowd, looking for the perfect target. His eyes stopped on a quiet boy sitting alone near the back. The boy had always kept to himself, carrying a small notebook and a pencil wherever he went. He didn't draw attention or seek it. He was calm, focused, and always polite to everyone around him. The principal's lips curved into a mischievous smile. He thought this boy would be perfect for a little joke in front of everyone. He imagined the students laughing, maybe even teasing the boy a little, all in good humor. The principal stood up straight, tapped the microphone, and called the assembly to attention. The noise in the hall slowly faded as students turned their eyes to the stage, curious about what was about to happen. "Good morning, everyone," the principal said, his voice warm and cheerful. "I thought we could do something a little different today. I want to see some talent right here in our school." He scanned the room, then pointed toward the boy at the back. "You, yes, you sitting there. Come up here and play the piano for us." The boy froze, his eyes widened, and his heart skipped a beat. He had not expected this at all. He had never been called up to perform in front of the whole school, and now all eyes were on him. Some students started whispering and giggling, assuming this would be embarrassing for him. They didn't know anything about him, only that the principal liked to joke, and this seemed like another one of his playful tricks. The boy hesitated, unsure if he should get up. His mind raced. He could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes staring at him. The whispers and quiet laughter of students made him feel nervous. His hands trembled slightly, and he swallowed hard. He had always loved music and the piano, but he had never performed in front of such a big audience. The thought of failing, of being laughed at, made his stomach twist. The principal, noticing the boy's hesitation, chuckled softly. "Don't be shy," he said. "We're all friends here. Just play something simple. Don't worry about messing up. Just have fun." He didn't realize that the words he thought were encouraging could feel like pressure to someone who had never been on a stage. He still thought it would be funny if the boy got nervous and made mistakes. A few students began to cheer him on, some playfully, some genuinely curious. Others whispered among themselves, making jokes, trying to guess what the boy would play. The hall was filled with a mixture of excitement, tension, and expectation. Some students thought it would be a simple performance, some were ready to laugh if things went wrong, and a few were quietly hopeful that the boy might surprise everyone. The boy slowly rose from his seat. Each step toward the stage felt heavy, like he was walking through water. He tried to take deep breaths to calm himself, but the sound of the whispers and laughter around him made it hard. Every eye in the room seemed to follow his movement. When he reached the piano, he hesitated again, his hands hovering over the keys. He looked around at the audience, the principal watching with a smirk, some students whispering and pointing. He felt a mix of fear and excitement. Deep down, he knew he could play. He had practiced for years, spent hours every day learning and perfecting his music in private. But performing in front of a crowd, especially when he was expected to fail, was something entirely different. He placed his hands lightly on the keys, feeling the smooth surface beneath his fingers. The hall grew quiet as students leaned forward, curious to see what he would do next. For a moment, he thought about turning back, walking away, and pretending nothing had happened. But then he remembered why he loved music, the way it made him feel, the way it could tell a story without words. He straightened his back, took a deep breath, and let his fingers rest naturally on the keys. The principal shifted slightly, still smiling, confident that the moment would bring amusement. Some students began to giggle, assuming the first notes would be awkward. The boy pressed down on the first key. It was soft, simple, almost hesitant. The sound filled the room, and for a moment, everything seemed calm. Then he played the next note, smoother this time, more confident. Each note began to flow naturally, and his fingers moved across the keys with surprising skill. The students started to notice. The music was not clumsy or awkward. It was beautiful. It carried emotion and depth, filling the assembly hall with a sound that was unexpected and captivating. Some students stopped whispering, their eyes widening in surprise. The principal's smirk faded slightly as he realized this was not going as he had imagined. He had expected laughter, but instead, he was hearing something extraordinary. The boy continued playing, each note growing stronger and more confident. He could feel the energy of the room changing. The laughter and whispers faded, replaced by awe and silence. Students leaned forward, their faces showing disbelief and admiration. The principal stared, unable to hide his shock. The boy was no longer nervous. He was in control, expressing himself through music in a way that no one had expected. Every key he pressed told a story. Every chord reached into the hearts of the listeners. The assembly hall, once full of chatter and jokes, was now completely still, hanging on every note. Students who had teased or doubted him before were now captivated, unable to look away. The music carried a power that no prank or joke could diminish. The boy's eyes were focused on the piano, his mind lost in the melody. He had forgotten the principal, the whispers, and even the audience. For him, there was only the music. As the first part of the melody ended, a quiet murmur spread through the room. Students exchanged amazed glances, unable to believe what they had just heard. The principal, now fully aware that the joke had completely backfired, looked at the boy with a mixture of awe and embarrassment. He had underestimated him entirely. The boy had turned what was supposed to be a moment of ridicule into a moment of beauty and inspiration. The boy took a small breath, preparing for the next part of his performance. He knew the music had already captured the attention of the school, but he wanted to give them everything he had. The first notes had shown his skill, but he had much more to share. He adjusted his posture slightly, fingers poised over the keys, and continued, ready to take everyone on a journey they would never forget. The boy's fingers hovered above the piano keys, trembling slightly at first. His heart was pounding, and a wave of nervousness washed over him. The entire assembly was watching, and he felt the weight of their eyes pressing down on him. The whispers had mostly died, replaced by an intense silence. He could hear the faint rustle of papers, the quiet shifting of students in their seats, and the principal's breathing, which seemed louder than ever. It was a moment of truth, a test he hadn't asked for but now had to face. He closed his eyes for a second and remembered all the hours he had spent practicing alone. Every afternoon, after classes were over and the halls were empty, he would sit at the piano in the music room. Sometimes he played slowly, carefully, making sure every note was perfect. Other times, he would let the music flow freely, improvising, feeling the rhythm inside him. That was when he felt the happiest, the moments when nothing else mattered except the sound of the piano and the way it made him feel alive. The boy opened his eyes again and looked at the keys. They glistened under the stage lights, smooth and waiting for him. He placed his fingers on them gently, almost reverently, as if touching something precious. He thought about the students watching him. Some had already laughed or whispered, assuming he would fail. Others were unsure, curious, waiting for what would happen next. He could feel their doubt, but he also sensed their attention shifting, their anticipation building. He pressed the first key. It was soft, a small note, almost hesitant. Then the second note followed, slightly stronger. He felt his confidence grow with each touch. The music began to form, delicate at first, like a whisper, then steadily gaining strength. His fingers moved smoothly, guided by memory and feeling. The melody was gentle, flowing naturally, telling a story without words. Students began to lean forward in their seats, their expressions changing from amusement to curiosity. The principal's smile wavered. He had expected a joke, a funny moment, something to make the students laugh. Instead, he was hearing something beautiful, something he had not anticipated. The boy's playing was full of emotion, and it filled the room, reaching every corner. A few students whispered to each other, surprised at the skill they were witnessing. Some couldn't help but smile, touched by the music. The whispers quickly faded as the melody grew stronger, capturing everyone's attention. Even the students who had been ready to laugh were now silent, caught off guard by the boy's talent. He had turned the prank into a moment of wonder, and the hall was beginning to recognize it. The boy continued, each note flowing into the next. He played with feeling, with a rhythm that seemed to come from inside him, not just from memory. The music was expressive, painting images in the minds of the listeners. Some imagined landscapes, others remembered personal memories, and many simply felt emotions they could not name. The sound of the piano connected everyone in the room, uniting them in a shared experience. The principal's eyes widened. He realized he had made a mistake, misjudging the boy entirely. What he had intended as a moment of laughter had become a display of extraordinary talent. He had underestimated the boy's dedication and skill. His smirk was gone, replaced by a look of genuine surprise and admiration. The prank had completely backfired, and he now felt both embarrassed and impressed. The boy played on, gaining more confidence with each note. He no longer thought about the audience or the principal's joke. The music had taken over, guiding him, giving him strength. He felt free, empowered, and alive. The piano seemed to respond to his emotions, the sound flowing effortlessly, carrying his story to everyone listening. Students were captivated. Some had tears in their eyes, moved by the beauty of the music. Others had their mouths slightly open, unable to believe what they were hearing. The assembly hall, once filled with chatter and giggles, was now completely silent. The music had transformed the atmosphere, replacing doubt and amusement with awe and respect. The boy's hands moved faster, yet every note was precise. His skill was evident, but more than that, it was the emotion in his playing that held everyone spellbound. The melody was no longer just a series of notes. It had become a story, a journey that took the audience along with him. Each chord resonated with meaning, each pause spoke volumes, and every movement of his fingers conveyed a depth of feeling that words could not express. Some students glanced at their friends, realizing they had misjudged him. The ones who had whispered jokes before now sat quietly, humbled by what they were witnessing. Even the teachers, who had seen many students perform, were astonished. They whispered to each other, sharing their surprise and admiration. The boy had become the center of attention, not because of a prank, but because of his undeniable talent. The principal leaned forward, his hands clasped together nervously. He had wanted entertainment at someone else's expense, but now he found himself entertained in a completely different way. He couldn't believe the mistake he had made. The boy's skill and confidence were impressive, and the principal realized he had underestimated not only the boy's ability but also the impact of kindness and encouragement over jokes and mockery. The boy noticed the shift in the audience. He could sense their amazement, their respect, and their surprise. It gave him courage, and he played with even more confidence. The music flowed like a river, steady and powerful, yet soft and gentle at the same time. He was no longer nervous. He was connected to the piano, to the room, and to the people who were now truly listening. Each note seemed to carry a message, a mix of emotion, passion, and story. Students who had doubted him felt a sense of humility and awe. They realized that talent could not be measured by appearances, by quietness, or by anyone's assumptions. The boy had shown them that true skill comes from dedication, love for what you do, and belief in yourself. The principal swallowed hard. He had come to the assembly expecting laughter at someone else's expense, but now he was witnessing a lesson in courage, humility, and talent. The music spoke louder than any words could, and he felt a deep respect for the boy who had transformed a prank into a moment of inspiration. As the boy continued, some students closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. Others watched intently, following each movement of his hands. The hall was no longer just a space for a morning assembly. It had become a place of emotion, connection, and shared experience. The boy's performance was creating memories that would last long after the day ended. For the boy, this moment was not just about proving himself to others. It was about showing the world what he loved, what he had worked for, and what he could do when he believed in himself. The fear that had gripped him at the start was gone, replaced by a sense of purpose and joy. Every note he played carried that feeling, and the audience could sense it too. The music began to slow, the melody softening. The boy was reaching the final part of his performance, but he played with care, making sure every note was clear, every chord complete. The last notes lingered in the air, delicate and resonant. The hall remained silent, as if everyone were holding their breath, not wanting the moment to end. Then, a single clap broke the silence. It was small at first, but soon more joined in. The clapping grew louder and louder, filling the hall with applause. Students were on their feet, cheering and clapping for the boy who had amazed them all. Even the principal stood, clapping, his expression a mix of pride, surprise, and humility. The prank had turned into a triumph, and the boy had earned the admiration of everyone present. The boy smiled softly, his heart racing with relief and joy. He had faced his fear, played from his heart, and changed the mood of the entire assembly. The music had done what words could not. It had captured attention, moved hearts, and created a memory that no one would forget. For a moment, everything felt perfect. The boy had turned a challenge into an opportunity, and everyone in the room had witnessed it. The boy's fingers danced across the piano keys, moving with a confidence he hadn't felt before in front of an audience. Each note he played seemed to flow naturally, like water following a riverbed, guided by instinct and emotion. The music was no longer hesitant or tentative. It had become a force that filled the room with energy and feeling. The students, teachers, and even the principal were completely captivated, unable to look away from the boy who had transformed what was supposed to be a joke into something extraordinary. Some students had tears forming in their eyes, moved by the emotion in the music. Others were wide-eyed, stunned that someone so quiet and unassuming could create such beauty. Even the teachers, who had seen countless performances over the years, were impressed. They whispered to each other, sharing their amazement, and some shook their heads in disbelief. The boy's music had captured everyone's attention, and the atmosphere in the hall had changed completely. It was no longer just an assembly. It was a moment of shared wonder, a collective experience that everyone would remember. The principal stood frozen, realizing how wrong he had been. The smirk that had been on his face when he called the boy to the stage had vanished. He had expected laughter, embarrassment, maybe a few jokes from the students, but what he was witnessing was far beyond anything he had imagined. The boy's talent was undeniable, and the principal felt a mixture of surprise, pride, and a little shame for underestimating him. He had set the stage for a prank, but instead, he had unknowingly given the boy the chance to shine. The boy's hands moved faster, yet every note was deliberate, precise, and full of expression. He played with a sense of purpose, telling a story through his music that words could not capture. Each chord, each melody, seemed to reach into the hearts of the listeners, stirring feelings they did not expect. The room was silent, but the silence was not awkward or tense. It was a silence filled with awe, appreciation, and anticipation for what would come next. Students who had been ready to laugh now sat quietly, their mouths slightly open, completely absorbed in the performance. Some glanced at their friends, as if to make sure they were seeing the same thing. The boy's music was not just impressive technically. It had a depth and emotion that touched everyone present. Even the ones who had doubted him, who had made jokes or whispers before, were now captivated. They were witnessing talent that demanded respect. The melody began to change, becoming softer and more delicate. The boy's fingers moved gently over the keys, each note carrying a weight of feeling that the audience could sense. Some students closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them, while others leaned forward, their faces reflecting wonder and admiration. The principal watched closely, feeling a mix of regret and admiration. He had been ready to joke at the boy's expense, but now he realized that true talent could not be mocked or underestimated. As the music continued, the boy's confidence grew. He no longer thought about the audience, the principal, or the prank. He was lost in the music, completely focused on the story he was telling through the piano. Every note, every pause, every chord was filled with emotion, and the audience could feel it. The hall had become a shared space of connection, where everyone was united by the beauty of the performance. The principal began to reflect on his actions. He realized that he had made a mistake in thinking it would be funny to single out the boy for a prank. He had underestimated not only the boy's talent but also his courage and dedication. The performance was teaching a lesson about respect, about the importance of giving people a chance, and about the power of talent and determination. The principal felt a deep sense of humility and admiration for the boy who had turned the situation around. Meanwhile, the boy continued to play, the music flowing effortlessly from his fingers. He felt the connection with the audience growing stronger. He could sense their awe and appreciation, and it gave him courage. The notes came faster now, yet each one was deliberate, filled with emotion. He was telling a story through the piano, and everyone was listening, feeling the journey he was taking them on. Students whispered quietly to each other, amazed by what they were witnessing. Some had never heard music like this played live before. They were learning, even in that moment, about patience, dedication, and the impact of sharing one's talent. Teachers nodded to each other, recognizing that this performance was more than just a musical display. It was an inspiring moment that would stay with everyone for a long time. The principal finally spoke softly, almost to himself, acknowledging the boy's incredible skill. "I didn't know he could play like this," he said, shaking his head. He felt a mixture of regret for planning a prank and pride for having such a talented student at his school. The boy had turned an awkward situation into a moment of triumph, and the principal realized that sometimes the most unexpected moments bring the greatest rewards. As the performance continued, the boy's music grew more complex, showing not only technical skill but also creativity and emotion. The melody rose and fell, building anticipation and then releasing it, keeping everyone on the edge of their seats. The students who had been skeptical were now fully engaged, leaning forward, their eyes fixed on the boy and the piano. They could feel the story in the music, and it resonated with them in ways they could not have imagined. The boy played with passion and grace, each note telling a part of his story, a story of dedication, practice, and love for music. The audience felt his emotion, his journey, and his courage. The principal watched in awe, understanding that he had learned an important lesson about underestimating others, about assumptions, and about the power of talent and perseverance. As the piece reached its climax, the boy's fingers moved swiftly and confidently over the keys, creating a sound that filled every corner of the hall. The audience was completely silent, hanging on each note, fully immersed in the experience. The music carried emotion, beauty, and depth, and it left a lasting impact on everyone listening. The boy's performance began to slow, the melody softening as he prepared to end. His fingers moved gently over the keys, leaving each note to linger, echoing in the hall. The silence that followed was not awkward. It was a silence filled with appreciation and awe. The students, teachers, and the principal sat in stunned admiration, fully aware of the extraordinary talent they had just witnessed. Then, slowly, applause began to fill the hall. At first, it was quiet, almost hesitant, but it quickly grew louder and louder. Students stood, cheering and clapping, celebrating the boy's incredible performance. The principal joined in, clapping enthusiastically, a mixture of pride and humility on his face. The boy had transformed a moment meant for a joke into an unforgettable display of talent and courage. The boy smiled softly, feeling a mixture of relief, joy, and pride. He had faced his fears, shared his passion, and inspired everyone in the room. The performance had become more than just a moment of personal achievement. It had become a lesson for the entire school about respect, courage, and the beauty of sharing one's talents. For the boy, it was a turning point, a moment when he realized the power of music and the impact he could have on others simply by following his heart. The boy continued to play, his fingers moving over the piano keys with growing confidence. The melody had become more expressive, carrying a sense of emotion that touched every person in the assembly hall. Students who had once whispered and laughed were now completely silent, their attention fixed on the boy and the music flowing from his hands. Teachers leaned forward, their expressions showing astonishment and pride. Even the principal, who had initially planned a joke, found himself unable to look away. The room was alive with the sound of the piano, and it had transformed the atmosphere completely. The boy's hands moved gracefully, each note deliberate, each chord filled with feeling. He had entered a state of focus where the music guided him, and he no longer thought about the audience or the prank that had brought him to the stage. The melody rose and fell, building tension and releasing it in perfect harmony. It was a performance that seemed effortless, yet it was clear that it had been shaped by countless hours of practice, dedication, and love for music. Students were mesmerized. Some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them, feeling emotions they could not put into words. Others leaned forward, their faces reflecting amazement and admiration. Even the students who had doubted him or been ready to laugh before now sat silently, captivated by the beauty and emotion of the performance. They could feel the story the boy was telling, a story without words, yet full of meaning. The principal watched closely, his expression shifting from surprise to awe. He had underestimated the boy completely, expecting a moment of humor, but instead witnessing something extraordinary. The smirk on his face had vanished, replaced by genuine respect and a little embarrassment. He realized that talent and dedication could not be judged by appearances or assumptions. The boy had turned what was meant to be a prank into a moment of inspiration and admiration. As the music continued, the boy's confidence grew even more. He was no longer playing hesitantly or cautiously. He was fully in control, expressing himself through the piano. Each note carried meaning, each chord resonated with emotion. The students were completely drawn in, feeling the power and beauty of the performance. The hall was silent, but it was a silence filled with wonder and appreciation. Some students whispered quietly to each other, sharing their amazement. Others sat in stunned silence, unable to believe the talent they were witnessing. The boy's music had captured the attention and hearts of everyone present. Even the teachers, who had seen many performances, were impressed by the skill, emotion, and confidence displayed. The principal continued to watch, understanding that he had underestimated the boy's abilities and the impact that genuine talent could have. The boy's hands moved with precision and grace. The melody flowed naturally, rising and falling with emotion, creating a story that everyone in the room could feel. It was a story of courage, dedication, and the power of passion. The students who had doubted him were learning an important lesson, that talent and perseverance cannot be mocked or dismissed. The boy had taken a moment meant for embarrassment and turned it into an experience that would be remembered by everyone. The principal felt a deep sense of humility. He realized that he had made a mistake in thinking it would be funny to call the boy to the stage for a prank. He had expected laughter at someone else's expense, but instead, he was witnessing a lesson in courage, humility, and skill. The boy's performance had transformed the hall, bringing everyone together through the power of music. As the performance reached its peak, the boy's fingers moved swiftly over the keys, yet each note was deliberate and expressive. The music carried energy and emotion, filling every corner of the room. Students were on the edge of their seats, captivated by the story unfolding through the piano. The teachers whispered to each other, sharing their amazement, and even the principal was silent, fully absorbed in the moment. The boy's melody began to slow, softening as he prepared to bring the performance to an end. His fingers moved gently over the keys, leaving each note to linger and resonate in the hall. The students, teachers, and principal were silent, holding their breath, not wanting the moment to end. The music had created a sense of connection, a shared experience that would stay with everyone for a long time. Then, slowly, applause began to fill the room. It started quietly, hesitantly, but quickly grew louder and louder. Students stood, cheering and clapping, celebrating the boy's incredible performance. The principal joined in, clapping enthusiastically, his face showing pride, admiration, and humility. The boy had turned a situation meant for ridicule into a triumph, earning the respect and admiration of everyone in the assembly hall. The boy smiled softly, feeling relief, joy, and pride. He had faced his fear, shared his passion, and inspired everyone in the room. The performance had become more than just a moment of personal achievement. It had become a lesson for the entire school about respect, courage, and the power of pursuing one's passion. The boy realized the impact his music could have, and he felt a sense of accomplishment and connection that he had never experienced before. The students were still clapping, some whistling and cheering, expressing their admiration and amazement. Teachers nodded and smiled, recognizing the importance of the moment. Even the principal remained standing, reflecting on the lesson he had learned about underestimating others and the value of encouragement over mockery. The boy had shown that talent, dedication, and courage could transform any situation, no matter how unlikely it seemed. As the applause continued, the boy took a deep breath and looked around the room. He saw the admiration and respect in the eyes of the students and teachers, and even the principal's expression had softened, filled with genuine pride. The boy realized that he had not only performed music, but had also inspired others, teaching them a lesson about believing in themselves and appreciating the talents of those around them. The hall was buzzing with excitement and energy. Students were talking to each other, sharing their thoughts about the performance and expressing their amazement. Some were inspired to try something new, encouraged by the boy's courage and talent. Teachers spoke quietly among themselves, discussing the impact of the performance and how it had created a moment of unity and admiration within the school. The principal approached the boy, a look of respect and humility on his face. He realized that he had made a mistake in planning the prank and wanted to acknowledge the boy's incredible talent. The boy smiled politely, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. He had faced an unexpected challenge, turned it into an opportunity, and had shown the school the power of courage, skill, and passion. As the assembly ended, students left the hall talking excitedly about what they had just witnessed. The boy returned to his seat, feeling proud and accomplished. He had not only played music but had also taught an important lesson about talent, respect, and the power of believing in oneself. The principal reflected on the day, understanding that sometimes the most unexpected moments bring the greatest lessons, and that encouraging and supporting others can lead to remarkable outcomes. The boy's fingers lingered on the last few keys, the final notes of the melody echoing softly through the hall. The silence that followed was profound, heavy with admiration and awe. Students sat still, some leaning forward in their seats, unable to contain their amazement. Teachers exchanged glances, nodding in silent respect. Even the principal stood frozen, still processing the incredible performance he had just witnessed. The boy had turned a moment meant for ridicule into a display of talent and courage that no one would forget. A single clap broke the silence, small and tentative, but it quickly spread as more students joined in. The applause grew louder and louder, filling the hall with excitement and admiration. Students who had doubted the boy, who had whispered jokes or rolled their eyes earlier, were now clapping with sincerity, their expressions a mix of surprise and respect. Some were even cheering, calling out words of encouragement and admiration. The boy's eyes sparkled with pride, though he remained humble, bowing slightly toward the audience. The principal, who had initially planned the prank, walked toward the boy with a newfound respect. He realized the gravity of what he had just witnessed. The smirk that had been on his face earlier was gone, replaced by genuine admiration and humility. He clapped alongside the students, and his voice carried a tone of sincerity as he addressed the boy. "That was truly remarkable," he said. "I underestimated you, and I want to apologize for the joke. Your talent and dedication are incredible, and you've inspired all of us today." The boy nodded politely, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and humility. He had faced his fears, shared his passion, and touched the hearts of everyone in the room. The applause continued, and the energy in the hall was electric. Students whispered excitedly to each other, discussing the boy's performance and expressing their amazement. Teachers commented quietly among themselves, impressed by the skill, emotion, and confidence displayed. The boy's friends, who had watched nervously from the sidelines, approached him with smiles of admiration. They expressed how proud they were and how much they had been moved by his music. Even students who had never spoken to him before found themselves clapping him on the back, congratulating him, and asking questions about how he had learned to play so beautifully. The boy responded with quiet gratitude, his humility shining through despite the attention. The principal addressed the assembly, acknowledging the boy's extraordinary performance. He encouraged the students to recognize and respect the talents of their peers, and to support each other rather than tease or judge. The message was clear. True talent deserves appreciation, and every individual has the potential to surprise and inspire if given the opportunity. The boy's performance had become more than just music. It had become a lesson in respect, courage, and the power of believing in oneself. Students continued to discuss the performance as they left the hall, their voices filled with excitement and admiration. Some were inspired to pursue their own passions, realizing that dedication and practice could lead to extraordinary results. Others reflected on how easily assumptions could be wrong, and how important it was to support one another. The boy had not only shared his music, but had also created a ripple effect of inspiration throughout the school. The principal approached the boy once more, offering a hand in congratulations. He admitted that he had been wrong to plan the prank and expressed his gratitude for the boy's courage and talent. The boy accepted the gesture with a humble smile, feeling proud of what he had accomplished but also aware that the moment was shared with the audience who had witnessed it. The connection between the boy and the school community had grown stronger, built on mutual respect and admiration. The teachers gathered around, praising the boy's skill and dedication. They discussed how his performance had demonstrated the importance of perseverance, practice, and passion. Some teachers noted how the music had united the students, creating a sense of community and shared experience. The boy listened quietly, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing that his love for music had made a positive impact on so many people. As the day continued, the boy returned to his regular routine, but the memory of the performance lingered. Students approached him in the hallways, offering congratulations and expressing their admiration. The principal took the opportunity to encourage the boy to continue developing his talent and to consider performing in other settings, perhaps even competitions or recitals. The boy felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness at the thought, but he also felt confident that he could face new challenges with the same courage he had shown today. The story of the performance quickly spread throughout the school. Teachers mentioned it in their classes, students shared it with their friends, and the boy became known not just for his quiet nature, but for his extraordinary talent. The prank that had been intended to embarrass him had transformed into a moment of recognition and inspiration. It was a story that would be remembered and told for years to come, highlighting the power of talent, courage, and humility. The principal reflected on the lesson he had learned. He realized that underestimating someone or planning a joke at their expense could have unexpected consequences. In this case, the outcome had been remarkable, but it had also taught him the importance of recognizing and nurturing the talents of students rather than attempting to create humor at their expense. The boy had demonstrated that true skill and dedication could shine even in challenging circumstances. The boy's confidence grew as he received more recognition. He began to practice with renewed enthusiasm, inspired by the positive reactions and support from his peers and teachers. The experience had shown him that sharing his passion could not only bring him personal fulfillment but also inspire and uplift those around him. He felt a sense of purpose, knowing that his music could make a difference in the lives of others. Students who had previously doubted him now looked up to him as a source of inspiration. They began to see that quiet or humble individuals could possess incredible talents, and that everyone deserved a chance to be recognized and supported. The boy had shown that courage, dedication, and passion could overcome fear and doubt, creating a lasting impact on those who witnessed it. The principal made it a point to encourage other students to explore their talents and interests, using the boy's performance as an example. He spoke about the importance of practice, perseverance, and confidence, and reminded the students that everyone has unique skills that deserve recognition. The assembly hall, once a place of whispers and jokes, had become a space of admiration, learning, and inspiration. The boy felt grateful for the opportunity, even though it had come unexpectedly and under unusual circumstances. He had faced a challenge, embraced it, and emerged stronger and more confident. The experience had not only highlighted his musical talent but also taught him about courage, resilience, and the power of sharing one's gifts with others. The applause and recognition were rewarding, but the personal growth and the positive impact on the school community were even more meaningful. As the day came to an end, the boy reflected on what had happened. He understood that his performance had been more than just music. It had been a lesson in courage, respect, and inspiration. He felt proud of how he had handled the situation and grateful for the support and admiration of those around him. The experience would stay with him forever, shaping his confidence and his approach to challenges in the future. The school community had learned a valuable lesson as well. Students, teachers, and the principal had witnessed the transformative power of talent, dedication, and humility. They had seen firsthand how a quiet, humble individual could rise to the occasion, overcome fear, and inspire others. The boy's performance had left a lasting impression, reminding everyone that true talent cannot be underestimated, and that encouragement and respect can lead to extraordinary outcomes. The boy returned home that evening with a sense of fulfillment. He had faced his fears, played from his heart, and shared his gift with the world. The experience had changed him, giving him confidence and reinforcing his love for music. He knew that this was only the beginning, and that his journey as a musician had the potential to inspire even more people in the future. The boy had not only succeeded in performing, he had become a symbol of courage, talent, and the power of believing in oneself. The boy returned to his seat, the applause still echoing in his ears. He felt a mixture of relief, pride, and gratitude. The fear and nervousness he had felt moments before seemed like a distant memory. The experience had changed him in ways he could not fully express yet. He had faced a challenge he never asked for, and instead of failing, he had amazed an entire school. The pride he felt was quiet but deep, the kind that comes from knowing you gave your very best and touched others with it. Students continued to buzz with excitement, sharing their thoughts about what had just happened. They were amazed that someone so quiet and humble could possess such talent. Many of them reflected on their own actions, realizing how easily they had judged someone without knowing their abilities. The boy's performance had not only entertained but also taught an important lesson about respect, humility, and the power of encouragement. Teachers approached the boy with smiles and words of praise. They complimented his skill, his courage, and the way he had carried himself under pressure. The boy accepted their admiration with modesty, feeling a warm sense of validation but staying grounded. He knew that the real reward was not just the applause but the realization that his music had inspired and moved so many people. The principal walked over, his expression softening. He had expected a prank, a moment of laughter at someone else's expense, but what he witnessed had humbled him. "I owe you an apology," he said sincerely. "I underestimated you and I was wrong to think it would be funny. Your talent is extraordinary, and today you taught all of us an important lesson." The boy nodded, offering a quiet smile, understanding the weight of the principal's words. It was a moment of mutual respect, a bridge built between them through the power of honesty and talent. The hall gradually emptied as the assembly concluded, but the excitement lingered. Students discussed the performance in whispers and small groups, recounting the moments that had moved them the most. Some students were inspired to pursue their own interests with more dedication. They realized that anyone, regardless of how quiet or humble, could surprise and inspire the world with passion and hard work. The boy felt a new sense of confidence. For the first time, he understood the impact he could have by simply sharing his passion. The applause and admiration were gratifying, but the deeper satisfaction came from knowing that he had changed how people saw him and perhaps even changed the way they viewed others. Talent and courage could not be hidden forever, and even in the most unexpected circumstances, they could shine. In the days that followed, the boy's performance became the talk of the school. Teachers mentioned it in classrooms, using it as an example of perseverance, talent, and bravery. Students discussed it during breaks and lunches, inspired by what they had witnessed. The boy became known not only for his musical ability but also for the courage he had shown in facing a moment that could have been embarrassing. He had demonstrated that true talent is accompanied by humility and that confidence can grow from challenges rather than diminish under pressure. The principal also reflected on the experience. He realized the importance of understanding and respecting each student's unique abilities. He recognized that encouragement and support were far more powerful than jokes or attempts at humor at someone else's expense. The event had taught him to approach students with more empathy and to recognize the hidden strengths they might possess. The lesson was clear. Underestimate no one, and always create opportunities for talent to flourish. As the weeks passed, the boy continued to practice the piano with renewed dedication. He felt inspired by the support he had received and the impact his music had made. His confidence grew, and he began to consider opportunities beyond the school, thinking about performances, competitions, and sharing his music with even larger audiences. The assembly had been a turning point, a moment that shaped his perspective and encouraged him to pursue his passion more boldly. Students who had initially doubted him often approached him in the hallways, complimenting his talent and asking questions about how he had learned to play so beautifully. Some even admitted that they had been wrong to judge him and thanked him for showing them the value of perseverance and dedication. The boy accepted their words graciously, realizing that the moment had not only been about him, but also about inspiring others to see the potential in themselves and in their peers. Teachers took note of the event as well, using it as an example for future assemblies and lessons about character, courage, and dedication. They emphasized the importance of giving every student a chance to shine, understanding that each individual carries unique gifts that might remain hidden until the right moment. The boy's performance had created a ripple effect, influencing the school culture in subtle but meaningful ways. The principal made a point of encouraging other students to explore their talents. He shared the story of the boy's performance, highlighting how courage, dedication, and passion had turned a moment that could have been embarrassing into a lesson in inspiration. The message resonated with students, teachers, and staff alike, reinforcing the idea that encouragement and recognition can unlock hidden potential. The boy felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had faced a challenge, shared his passion, and inspired others. His music had become a bridge between himself and the school community, creating connections that were genuine and lasting. He understood that his talent was not just a personal gift but also a way to impact others, to inspire and uplift through dedication and expression. As the months passed, the boy continued to grow as a musician and as an individual. He participated in more performances, gaining confidence and experience. The lessons he had learned during the assembly, the value of courage, humility, and persistence, remained with him, guiding his actions and his approach to challenges. His success inspired other students to pursue their passions with similar dedication, creating a culture of support, respect, and encouragement within the school. The principal also continued to reflect on the experience, using it to improve how he interacted with students. He approached each student with greater care, always mindful of their unique strengths and potential. The assembly had been a turning point, teaching him that even playful jokes can have consequences and that respect, encouragement, and recognition are far more powerful tools than ridicule. The boy's story became an example for the school community. It was told and retold, highlighting the importance of believing in oneself and recognizing the talents of others. Students, teachers, and staff remembered the day not just as a musical performance, but as a lesson in courage, humility, and inspiration. The boy had taken a moment meant for laughter and turned it into a legacy of motivation, showing everyone that talent, dedication, and heart could change perceptions and touch lives. In the end, the boy had grown not only as a musician but also as a person. He had faced fear and pressure, embraced his abilities, and shared them with the world. The school had learned an important lesson about respect, recognition, and the power of encouragement. The principal, Teachers and students all carried the memory of that day with them, reminded that even in unexpected moments, true talent and courage can shine brightly and inspire everyone around them. The boy looked back on that assembly as a defining moment in his life. It had taught him that challenges could be transformed into opportunities, that humility and dedication mattered as much as talent, and that courage often comes in quiet, unexpected ways. His journey was just beginning, but he now knew the impact his passion could have, and he carried that knowledge forward with pride and confidence. The experience had not only changed him but had also left a lasting mark on the school, creating a story of inspiration that would be remembered for years to come.